okay, so a lot of times people in America, when we talk about our people, we just straight slavery, straight slavery. And after that, this where we at today. But once you start thinking about where your ancestors came from, you can start putting the pieces back together to see what was happening before slavery, because the world didn't just start when slavery started. Like the world is not just 400 years old. So
Exactly.
I think it's a lot more history way before these 400 years that we can really tap to. But like I said, we have to put our best foot forward in doing so, because a lot of times it's not hidden, but it's not just going to be sitting in our eyes.
Oh yeah, hidden in plain sight, a lot of the things, and I think especially nowadays there's little excuses such as it was in generations prior, where it would have been so hard to get a book or so hard to retrieve certain information that was only put in books and stuff. And you often hear the popular phrase, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. So we know for a huge portion of time, unless it was the highly educated scholastic types, they wouldn't really be retrieving information from books. But now where we're at with the internet, since we went into the information age, some years ago, everything pretty much at the click of a button. You can find a lot of this text that was classic books. I was recommended one to somebody earlier. It was Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And so I listened to it and I think, wow, classic book. But I think how exclusive that book would have been in the time it would have been printed and published. And what type of person would have A, been able to access the information, and B, even be able to decipher it at that time, dependent upon what sort of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding they were privy to. And we look at it, the information, a lot of it is still relevant, still pertinent now, but you can get it in an audio book now, and sit down and, hey, it might run you about 3 or 4 hours, but you can digest the information and stuff. So as you said, things aren't necessarily hidden, but you still have to have a certain level of comprehensive thinking to be able to go through the information, I feel. Especially if it's like, the high, a lot of the higher science stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think as far as books, I'm not going to say the best way to hide it from the black man to put in the book, but I do think that some time ago, like 200, 300 years ago, when it came to the people who were writing books, they didn't really have much to hide. Like they didn't have to hide the information. It was widely known what they was doing, and the mentalities that they had.
Yeah,
So
no.
I think that was a big way to keep it, out the way. If you already living through an experience, why would you need to read about it?
Yeah, I think primarily the main thing was just down to probably certain periods of time. A, people may not have been able to access the books, and B, you got to think when they tell you about slavery and stuff, and they say the slave wasn't even allowed to read. So for a huge portion of time, you get a whooping, or you may even get killed if you caught reading a book or something. So people had become so dumbed down that it would be unfathomable for them to even pick a book up anyway, let alone get into the information behind it. You'd have to really have already been like some kind of scholar type. Because you always, I guess even throughout slavery, you always had some free folks, and they would have been more scholarly in some regard, I guess, But yeah, if you was just a low level.
What do you define as? No, I was gonna say, what do you define as scholarly? Will you think of that as more of European when it comes to scholar, or do you think of that more as?
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I was talking similarly about somebody with this earlier, and we were just talking about not necessarily needing to have I guess a degree or something by the state to quantify your intellect. Now, what I mean as scholarly more so at that period of time is the person would have had to have had some kind of scholastic education or training to even be able to be in the conversation and reading or writing books, because if they was just somebody was kept at slave level, they wouldn't even have had no book access or anything anyway. So
right.
Because there are, there's books that you can even read from. There's a guy called Alado Equiano, and he got a book called I I think it's Elado's travels or Equiano's journeys or something. And he was actually a slave at a period of time. And then he, he got his freedom and stuff. But he was articulate enough that he could use be it their language, but use the language to write a book and stuff and all of that. But, and there's a lot of stories you hear where they say some of I guess the earlier slaves were smarter people. They could read, they could write and stuff. And it was only due to the conditions I feel people was kept in over a certain number of period of years that then it's like being held back. They couldn't really then read or the desire to read. I mean, shit real now. I know certain people, even in the UK at a certain age group, they still very probably basic with, I'm talking, if we were talking not like high level reading and writing, and then especially since the internet and phones and all that come in, everybody,
Right.
they text how they talk, they text in slang, and I ain't want to like put over the language and say you gotta be the language to be all and end all, but you gotta at least know how to operate it at its highest level.
Right. No,
And
definitely.
that's how the society work, and you're held back if you can't. So that's why we've started to see things change over the years where there has been more, especially in the UK, more kind of authors, like Black authors that have come from like the street level or come from a music level, and they've sort of encouraged other people to start picking up books and reading them more, because I think even just overall picking up a book and reading it was always seen as like a chore, or like, unless you was like a geek or something like that, not much people were really down for that in a lot of Black families, just picking up a book for the sake of it. I mean, I always read books and stuff for the most parts as a child, like, to the best that I could. But